We get a lot of emails and questions on the phone throughout the year on proper starter care, O-ring replacement, starter adjustment. What we've got here is a 100 that's done. It's ready for its test run. I've got a test cone on the back end of it. Here's the reason it looks so dirty is because we don't like putting brand new cones on a motor when we test run it. So anyway, here's the starter that's going to go on it. The first question I'm going to answer is, how do you replace an O-ring on a starter? Simply, you would pull it out of the FOD screen, take an X-Acto knife inside of here, and simply pop that bad boy out. Okay? Take your new O-ring, pop it back in here with your thumb, and then for some amazing reason, the end of X-Acto knife is the exact inside diameter that it needs to be. So you just kind of roll that around there a little bit, and you're all good to go. One other thing that we see when we get motors in for service and repair is guys have taken and oiled and lubricated this sliding clutch. And that's a no-no, because the lubrication acts as a magnet and it attracts dust particles and it gums this up, and after a while then the clutch will not disengage, and that leads to bigger problems. So having said that, to install a starter on your motor, first thing you want to do is take your leads. We're going to chuck those up here in our trusty little lathe, and we're going to tin them. Soldering iron's already hot. Get that nice and thick on there and get it good and hot so it flows real good into the copper wire. Okay, well, that cools a little bit. On the back of this starter, you can see it's clearly marked negative and positive. Naturally, red being positive. The wires are cool now. What I like to do when I install them is I like to take and put a little bit of a bend into that wire. Makes for a little neater solder installation when you're all done and reinstalled. Put this starter in the stand here, grab our wiring. Okay, we're going to do the positive side first. Okay, now the next thing we'll do before we even install it is we're going to take our little test plug that we've got here to a 7.4 volt battery, and I've made up a nice little jumper here. We're going to plug this in, grab our little trigger here. You can see, good to go. So we'll unplug that, stand our motor up here on end. We're going to put this motor in all the way down till you hear it hit the compressor nut. Now if you look inside, when I turn this starter motor, you can see that the compressor is turning also. That tells you they're in contact. So now that you know you're in as far as it'll go, we take a nice scribe here and we just scribe a line. Like so. We then pull the starter out about 1 millimeter to 1.5 millimeters, and we take a little Torx bit here and we just nip this up just ever so slightly. We're going to come back here, we're going to plug our test switch in, and that's all there is to it. Once you're happy with the performance, go over here to this other grub screw that you've got, take it out, and a little bit of blue Loctite. Do that to all three, and it doesn't take much pressure. Now, one other thing, when you've done this to a starter several times, you've had it apart, when you reinstall it, always try and rotate it a little bit so that each time, you can see this is a used starter, you can see each time you nip that up, it makes a mark. And after a while, those marks will become indentations, and it will always want to go back to its original depth. And a lot of times a new O-ring you would have to have the starter further away from the compressor nut. So just one thing to keep in mind, that when you stick it in there, rotate it to a place where it's not been marked at before from a previous installation. And that's it for today. Thanks for paying attention. Class dismissed.